Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Smarter Campus podcast, where we are changing education one conversation at a time. Today, I am lucky enough to be joined by Tina Austin, an award-winning educator, AI literacy pioneer, and creator of the Unbloom Method, a framework rethinking Bloom's taxonomy in the age of AI. Tina, there's so much more I could mention about what you're doing, but I'd love if you could give the audience just a little better intro of who you are.
Hi, Zach. Thanks so much for having me here. And it's a pleasure being here on your podcast. Thanks for the generous introduction. I just call myself an educator and try and help faculty and students figure out the best way to navigate the new age of AI that we're stepping into.
Amazing. Well, I'm so excited to have you on today. So, I know you're a huge, like I mentioned, pioneer in the AI education space. How did you land yourself here? How did you get to the AI educator field?
Well, it's interesting because before, a month or two before ChatGPT came out, I was in a department that worked on AI, even though my background's biomedical research, and they got me really interested in the topic. And so when ChatGPT was released, I was one of the earlier people that started working with it, and I wanted to implement it in every single class in a way that I wanted students to think about it critically instead of just like push a button and use it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and after that, students told me they really enjoyed like evaluating it, looking at assignments differently. They had so much fun with the class. And yeah, they said if the class was any more cutting edge, it would be like, I don't know, looking at quantum physics or something. But it was fun. We had fun in that class. And then I took it to the other classes. And then a year ago, I moved to a different department and then brought AI into like humanities and communication and that's how I decided, wait, like there's a different way to put AI into different classes. And that's how, when people were talking about the flip blooms and the regular blooms taxonomy, the pyramid that we all know, I thought, well, how would this work in like different classes and different for different faculties? So that's where I got creative with it. And now I have a bot on the unblooms and doing more things, hopefully collaborating with more people and see how it goes.
Great. I mean, I think the one thing that a lot of faculty members struggle with that I'm sure you understand is kind of like diving in. Not everyone was super innovative and understood that, hey, I'm going to just try this. How did you kind of like ease into the waters, I guess? Like, how did you start?
Well, it wasn't sometimes some of it wasn't just like and part of it was trying to be brave and do something innovative.
Yeah.
The other part of it was knowing that I couldn't keep doing what I was always doing. And that's been the case for every single class that I've taught. It's always been a different, even if I repeated the same course that I was teaching, I would revamp the course every single quarter, brand new slides, brand new research, look at all the feedback forms from students from last quarter. What did they want? What did I not do? And then like redo the whole thing. And then people would say, "Whoa, you're doing too much. That's insane. You should not be doing that. You should just teach your class and go home." And and I thought, that's so I don't know. I don't find excitement in just teaching my class and just going home. I wanted to see there's always a better way to make it better. And
Yeah.
so when AI came along, you can imagine how thrilled I was to say, well, now let's like play with this new thing. And then it opened up a whole new world of possibilities. Like we did AI summaries in our classes way before Google and Amazon and those other people were like, I was doing AI summaries for feedback on presentations long before. I mean, again, not to say that like, oh, but it was because we were just trying to be creative, or I was using it as a predictive modeling thing for seeing how I can improve my students' grades early in the quarter based off of the feedback I got the previous quarter halfway through the course. So let's say if I had now a class of 160 students that each of them would give me feedback every day on how they understood the lecture, I could tell by week two or week three who are the students I need to reach out to ahead of time. And that's not an easy thing to do in a large classroom.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So how did you, I mean, you do have a bit of a, you do have a technical background, correct?
I don't know if it's a technical because I was a math major before I became a bio major.
Okay.
And then, I had a really good biology teacher who taught us about human cloning and like Dolly the sheep cloning, not human cloning per se. But then the conversation just went into cloning and like explaining it for my classmates. And so I think that was the moment I realized, oh, I love explaining these things, the complex things, and I'm going to change, move from math to biology. My parents were so disappointed, and I'm like, it is what it is. This is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, so the question I have with that is like that predictive modeling stuff you're doing is complicated, and often a lot of folks probably would want to do exactly what you're doing, but think I can't do that because that's hard math stuff. Uh,
Mhm.
I'd love if you kind of talked about the ability to do things more technically savvy than you could before with AI and how that's helped.
Well, part of it is like, I'm glad I love this question. Part of it is just like being thrown into courses, Zach, that I previously did not teach. And that's part of teaching in higher ed is, when you, let's say, become a lecturer, the expectation is you you're there and you can teach. And I took that so literally. Like I started teaching a research deconstruction course and nobody like had prepared me for that course. It was a matter of you take a research paper and you deconstruct that the entire quarter with your students and find out all the problems and all the issues and all the biases. And that's what I ended up doing on LinkedIn. Like, you see a paper like brain rot coming out or a paper on whatever study on education in the other side of the world. I wanted to pick that apart and break it, see what are some things the authors may have like been biased towards, how is this being interpreted on social media? So to answer your question, it's just been being thrown into the situation and then suddenly finding that, oh, this is a skill that I'm good at,
Yeah.
or maybe I think I'm good at. I shouldn't say I'm good at.
Well, I mean, one thing I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while, and I know you've like had some pushback from your university, right? And I think a lot of people that halts their kind of innovation, but you've really highlighted how you can kind of make your own path at your university and you can prove things by doing. Like, how would you recommend someone do that?
Honestly, it's not the road less traveled is not one that's ever like highlighted for you or like, it's not like as soon as someone says, well, you can't do this, and now the next day this other path shows up, it's kind of like you have to figure out where you want to be, what you want to do, and if all the doors are closed, how do you how do you get to, where you want to be despite all that, despite all the like pushback, despite and it's not to like get, fight back or to like, still try and be in the same place, but figure out, okay, now where do I go from here? You know? Yeah.
So the next question I have is like a lot of this is pretty like uncharted territory, right? Like all the
Yes.
things that you're doing is very like new. So how do you test things being effective, right? With these new innovations that you're coming out with.
That's a really good question. And I like to I don't know if anything is like, I mean, who is it effective for? And you have to look at, so when you do an experiment with AI, right? You test it with, you know, let's say you already have an outline before you run that with students. You tell the students this is what we're going to do. If you don't want to do it, that's fine.
Yep.
It's kind of an experiment, right? And making sure you set expectations with everyone, privacy, all of that. And then when I share it on LinkedIn or share it with people in my network, I actually want them to like really tear it apart and really like tell me where I'm seeing what I'm seeing wrong with this. And that's how you grow, not by just say, well, I think this is effective because this gave me this like output and so confident, right? Because with AI, and I follow you as well, it can be so confident and people are so quick to say like, I'm not going to say who are the bigger thought leaders that might say, oh, well, of course this thing hated this output or like, they anthropomorphize the AI and they say this is the AI didn't like doing this or it really liked my response. Is to kind of like question everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that. The question everything. So, next question. I mean, you're flying all around the world, giving speeches to people, teaching people everywhere. Where would you say the world is at right now with your community that you've worked at with the AI space?
Oh, I don't know where are they at? Good question. I think they're in a much more a better place of understanding than they were for sure a year ago and before that, 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I
Yeah.
think most people now have a better grasp of what when we say black boxes or when we say AI is sycophantic or when we say that there's different models, different training data. I think most people are getting a better grasp of that. And even though the community always has its like back and forth fights on like, should this be allowed? Should this not be allowed? Is this an M dash? Is this all of that? I think these discussions, even though they sound repetitive, they're very important for getting us from where we were to where we are now. And I actually embrace that. I love having different people in my network that are coming from different perspectives because that's where I learn, or I think we all like in a way learn from, oh, this one person could have a point, and then we'll look at a paper or we'll look at a research and I think I learn a lot from those conversations. I That's one thing I love about LinkedIn is like the other day I was showing, I posted a graph and then someone's like, let's turn this into an Excel sheet. And then someone's like, hey, I evaluated this with this other Canva tool and now I came up with this. So the community is just amazing, right?
I mean, it's amazing. I always joke some of my best friends I've made on LinkedIn now, which is hilarious because I mean, it's just such a good community of like people like to argue, right? Which is good. And I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of like misconception on who's right and who's wrong, and when there really isn't someone who's right or wrong, and we're all kind of just learning. And this kind of brings me into next question that I have, which is kind of a big one, I guess. But like these big tech companies kind of push that conversation forward, right? So like as an educator, as a leader in the educational community, like how do you take innovation from big companies kind of with a grain of salt?
Wow, all your questions are amazing. Um, so one thing I forgot to like share with you is that early on in my journey, I started this group with all lecturers from all over different UCs, and I wanted everyone to come and participate once a month. Lots of people showed up and bring in their views from different schools, different like pushback, and I actually got to learn a lot from this community, and I've been chairing that community since 2023. And and so we every month we don't just evaluate what's been released, but also like how is the tech being implemented in different schools and what is faculty's response to that. And so I have a feel based off of being in that group, what are like some people have workload pushback, some people have pushback on whatever. And so recently, as you know, there was also a big educator conference, which again, I'm not going to name the details, but I loved being in that conference because I got to learn more about it was like my LinkedIn feed came to life. You had like someone with a mic saying, I don't agree with this, and someone with a mic saying, oh, I think because of this, tech people are like laying off, for example, their own employees. So how can we trust them if we're, implementing this in our classroom? So those are all valid points. So how do we, to answer your question, how do we take that with a grain of salt is like we consider all of those points and we don't just give them the pass because they are tech companies. I mean, tech companies build a lot of things. I'm not anti-tech.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, tech companies do a lot of great things for us, but we want to be aware of where we could, give our own likeness away or give our own um, identity away to these chatbots,
Yeah, I
right?
totally agree. And like off of that, not to name companies or anything, but like certain company came out with a new feature, right? That like teaches like a Socratic tutor, right? And like a lot of that, someone like yourself, I'm sure understands exactly what that is. How it's not that huge of a deal, but it seems to be a big deal because of what's going on. And like how do you, as a person that really understands this stuff, kind of help educators understand that certain things are made for you, certain things our sales tactics, kind of things like that. How do you help other people cut through the noise, I guess?
Thank you. And what I've been doing on LinkedIn is I've been trying, and I'm trying to do this on Substack. I haven't had time too much for Substack, but mostly on LinkedIn is I like to take the claims, right? It's Socratic, it does this, that, and evaluate them. And then I like to do, even if it's a mini review, but I like to review the pros and the cons. So if I just do the cons, it's not a review, it's a rant, you know?
Mhm.
It's just everything is awful.
Yeah.
And I don't know where like after 10 posts, people will realize I'm not going to give them any review. It'll just be me talking about tech is bad. But I also don't like to, oh, it's so great and this is some give it another chance. No, no, no. I want to be in, in the middle, not necessarily forcing myself in the middle, but kind of evaluating everything neutrally and as if it's like a fresh new product.
Yeah.
And how would my student use it? Because I know my own students that were like pre-med school or um, pre-law school, I know they use these tools and they happen to disclose that with me because I talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think the one thing that you just said is so valuable and most people don't understand that, like, if you talk about this stuff, your students will feel comfortable to talk about it with you. So, could you kind of dive into that a little bit more of how you built like a community of trust, I would call it, I guess, between your.
thank you. Yeah. So one of the things I do with my former students and current students is I encourage them to come back at after class if they or one of the things is we get back together and we talk about things once a month about like issues. This is volunteer people. We just like have a lunch and grab
Yeah.
a lunch and chat about whatever's happening. I do that during the quarter as well, like if it's between classes and I'm in my office or just you know somewhere on campus, they'll say, "Hey, when you have," and students love doing this, by the way. I was surprised. I was surprised that so many students like to like between their classes say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like sitting at like next to Royce Hall. Let's chat, and they'll come and chat,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about like how's everything going with classes and things like that, and they'll often even chat amongst each other like, oh yeah, my other professor, they'll ban this, but or they won't talk about this and and it's kind of like just being open to hearing those conversations because not everybody's interested in those conversations, but I'm interested, so they'll come and share things like that, or even in the classroom, not even after the class, when I have like a 15-minute break where they can reflect on something they just learned. That's usually a time where students will say, "Oh yeah, by the way, like across the board, I like how you're doing this in this class because my other instructors don't do this." And so I get a better feel of what it looks like for a student.
That's awesome. So one thing that I struggle with, I joke it's my job, and I struggle with this is like, how do you stay up to date with this stuff?
Yeah, no, good question. I actually I used to just rely on posts on LinkedIn and posts on social media and Twitter and whatnot. But nowadays, I'm actually looking at the papers as they get released, and I'm because it was before that it was just like people would follow whatever Ethan Mollick is saying or whatever, who are and it got to a point where it's like, no, this is clearly not enough and it's clearly going in a certain direction. So we need to like look at actual papers, actual research that's coming out and take every company's claims for with a grain of salt.
Yep.
And so I think that's the best one. Now there's like, if you subscribe to these like articles or websites that provide these papers, you can get like a lot of really good, rich content that comes out daily, and it's often missed because it's not with the hype. It's the hype ones get picked up, like the
Yeah.
MIT paper that spread so fast before people could just even figure out what was going on with that paper.
I mean, I still see that post. Like, I'm not much of a researcher myself, so I haven't done it, but I read your post about it, which then made me read into it. And I love what you said. It's like, if you don't follow the hype, no one really hears it. And I think people like yourself are really helpful for the community, right? To kind of go learn from and learn about. Uh, so kind of we're wrapping up on time. Like I said, I like to keep these things super short. But like what are a few resources that you recommend for people to kind of as beginners, right? That they're interested in getting started. Like how would you tell a teacher that's like, I listen to this and I want to start now, but I don't know what to do.
Well, this comes up a lot. I was starting to build my own resources, but I figured everybody's doing this now, so there's like so many
Yeah.
resources for everyone. Like, how do I get started with ChatGPT? Or like try a prompt every day, or try something that you're an expert at, and see if the AI can get get there, right? So start with something you're an expert at. Try a prompt that you um, are really like you know the answer and you think that you know the answer better than AI. And you might be right and it will be your answer might be the better answer, but maybe that will give you a glimpse into how these tools work and where the advantage is. So
Yeah.
I don't like to say go to this website or I mean yes, you can go follow me on LinkedIn and you can definitely, if you're interested in workshops or whatever, I'm happy to do that for I've been doing that for different universities and schools. But I also like to keep an open mind for anyone who's new is just really try something they haven't done before in a way that's safe.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, I mean, this has been so helpful. So, two questions I ask everybody at the end of the podcast. First one's kind of a big one, so feel free to take your time to answer it. If you could snap your fingers and change one thing about education, what would change after you snap your fingers?
oh wow. Good one. Hmm. Change one thing about education. I would say if I could snap my fingers and change one thing about education is to make people more open-minded to trying out new things. And this is such a big one in higher ed because we're still dealing with silos with departments who that are like, this is how I've always done something. I'm not gonna change my ways. And yeah, or I don't see the value in this and I'm not going to try it. I'm not going to give it a chance. So if I could snap my fingers, it would be to like have everybody try one thing
Yeah.
and
Yeah, I mean that's a great answer. I think a lot of people have the silo, right? And I think there's so much value, especially with AI, that like engineers could be working with communication majors on projects and cool things like that, where everyone's learning together. But last question, what's your favorite way to use AI outside of school, outside of work? Mine is for cooking, as an example.
I love that. I love that you're using it for cooking. Do you always get the best cooking
So
tips?
I like cooking Asian food. So I like will take like ribs or a burger or something, and then I have like I'm building like a cookbook with an AI thing. So I'll just take a picture of the fridge and be like, I want to make this, but with a little twist, and it just comes up with super cool like recipes and all that stuff. It's really fun,
That's
actually.
cool. So far it hasn't given you the glue.
No, I haven't gotten any of those bad ones yet, which is funny. I have had some that weren't great, but fun, right? To kind of just try something new.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I have a particular use case that is like very special to what I do, which is like um again I use it for like I don't know if it's one that would be apply to your all of your audience. Um but one way I've been and I think we talked about this in a previous podcast was like when you're driving or when you're like stuck in
Yeah,
traffic to just chat with it about like a schedule or something that is coming up and to see like how can you organize it better. And this is again, everything I say is assuming that you're already safe about your privacy, you have privacy settings turned off, and you're not like
yeah,
oversharing your personal information. I have to say this because there's always a person that will listen and say, well, you just said to people to like give away your person. Like, no, no, no. I'm talking about very like basic
yeah.
scheduling things. I think that would be a good use is just like in your downtime. And I
Yeah.
use it a lot in downtime. Like if I'm on a plane, I like which these days I am a lot. I wish that they all have Wi-Fi. Not all flights have Wi-Fi. Like I just want to like learn looking at things differently, and it's really good about that.
Yeah. Well, Tina, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I learned something. I know people listening will learn something, and I will have all of Tina's LinkedIn, Substack, all of that stuff in the bio of this video. But Tina, any lasting thoughts before we wrap up?
And just stay curious and question everything.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you next week.